Welcome back to the Persistence Project, where we talk all things strength training from mindset to max effort. I'm your host, Rob Allen. I'm a strength coach and a multi-ply powerlifter, and this podcast is all about talking to other athletes, coaches and practitioners within the strength space about what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. This podcast, as always, is brought to you by my awesome sponsors, Jacked and Juiced Apparel, East Coast Supplements in Dubbo, and Hunter Performance Physio in East Maitland and Raymond Terrace. Make sure you go into the show notes, click on their link, give them a follow on Instagram, and if you're so inclined, support what they do. While you're there, if you're on YouTube, chuck a like, a subscribe, a follow, all that stuff. Leave a comment if you enjoy the episodes. It helps us get in front of more eyes. And on Spotify, make sure you chuck a follow. It's all appreciated and it all helps us grow here at the podcast. Today, my guest is Twomey. Twomey is a 140 kilo powerlifter with a best raw total of 910 kilos. He came first place at GPC Nationals this year. He's also competed in multi-ply with an 885 total in the 125s.
Yeah, one.
And he is competing at Pro Raw next year, hoping to better that 910 total. He has an extensive background in football, in rugby, and has been a coach and a powerlifter for competing for 6 years. So, Twomey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
You are most welcome. Good to have you. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah.
So, like all these podcasts always start, it's all about how you got into the gym initially. What drew you to strength training and strength culture?
Yeah. Well, as a younger bloke, I was never the bigger, heavier set bloke that I probably, as a lot of people would look at me now. I was always the skinnier build, sort of had the bigger legs, but never really had the upper body to match it. So when I started playing footy for Maitland in the under-18s, after juniors and all that kind of stuff, there was a PCYC membership that was attached to your registration. So I'd finish school as a 16-year-old. I'd get off the bus, go to the PCYC, train there before training, and then I'd go to training as it was, because I always wanted to be the stronger version on the weekend. But then eventually the more I played footy, the more that sort of spread itself apart. Eventually, when I did want to hang up the footy boots, I just sort of went to the gym. I was bouncing around between variants of CrossFit and bodybuilding, just based on what I did learn from footy. And then sort of I tried a novice comp, and this was 2017 I tried it. And then I met Leroy from Hunter Strength, and yeah, he pretty much reined me in and was like, this, you could do this if you wanted. But I was also 50-50 at that point. I had not much going for me. There wasn't much going at all. Career-wise, I didn't focus on any careers. It was just labour jobs or anything in between. So between Leroy mentioning, hey, don't throw your life away going there, try this. I reckon you could do good at this. Try and focus on a career outside of that, outside of defence, and then just work with that. Ended up doing that, and we're pretty much eventually here now. Yeah. So it was more or less just, hey, don't throw your life away doing this. Give that a go.
Yep.
And then I gave it a go, and bit that apple, and then here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you first started training for football, did you, because a lot of people speak about, especially people who have gone into competing in strength sports after doing a team sport, is that they found something different in the gym, whether they fell in love with the training or they fell in love with the fact that they control all the variables and stuff like that. Was there anything like that for you while you were still playing footy?
Look, it was more or less like I determine the outcome to what happens. Mm-hmm. Playing a team sport, you can't determine every outcome. Mm. So if someone else makes a mistake, that's also on you. Yep. If I make a mistake in the gym, I can't blame anybody else but myself. You can't blame a coach. You can't blame a handler. You're the one that has the bar. Mm. If you make a mistake, that's on you. So I love that form of accountability, that you don't lose in your own hands. So eventually that sort of did become a problem when, you lose a few games back to back, or you have a really rough season, and even though you're performing, you can't guarantee what everybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. And that hit me really hard. There was one season where I was unfit. Doesn't matter how hard I trained, I could not get fit. I think that was because puberty had an idea that you shouldn't be small, and I just packed on so much weight in one off season. I think I went from 80 kilos or 85 to around the 110 mark in one off season between Christmas and the start of the next footy season.
Yeah, right.
Christmas wouldn't have helped, but as a young bloke, it never really should. It shouldn't have had that influence on me, but it did. So having that big growth spurt for the start of the next season, I went from playing centre, second row to playing front row in the space of one season.
Yeah.
So that definitely had a weigh-in factor as I'm getting heavy. I can't really compete in this sport properly. I did lose a bit of weight and I did have a good season the next year, but my heart just wasn't in it. It just wasn't there. So I just ended up giving it away. But the one thing that was always the standout outcome was that if I was in the gym, I can put in the best effort possible, get the results I want, but I've also got to use the same discipline I learned playing footy and all those team sports, and it just crossed over. It was just an easy thing to swap. Just once I put the boots away, it was easy to take over and just do that.
Yeah.
And it was on my terms.
And you stuck with the footy for a while. We were talking off camera about that because I didn't know you full history back in football.
Yeah.
You played for the Pickers, which is kind of the step before going
into like the reserve grade, the NRL, and all that kind of stuff. Like I was always a player that seemed to be on the fringe. I never stood out like a sore thumb, and if I did, it was usually because of a mistake.
Yeah.
But I was always there's always like possibles, probables, or you'd make the tryouts or the backup, the call-in squads, and it just never seemed to stick.
Yeah.
That was always a problem for me. And eventually that just sort of turned sour. It's like, it's sort of like getting blue-balled in a way. Like you're always getting told there's a possibility and you just constantly get let down. And eventually, over a couple of severe head knocks, the HIA started, all that kind of stuff. You just don't get looked at. So it just didn't happen.
Yeah, so what was kind of the point? Obviously that started that process of you going, well, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Was there like a time where you just went, right, I'm done? What kind of led to that decision?
It was more or less just false promises and like false promises and just physical letdown that I started looking in the mirror thinking I was the problem. But then it's like, well, hang on, if I'm busting my ass and performing in other ways, where am I getting let down here? But then eventually you start internalising your own rage and realising, well, no, I'm not the problem. I'm better than this. I shouldn't be here. So then it was just easy for me to walk away from it on a sort of a high, thinking, all right, if I can just let this go, it'll be fine. You never really let it go, but you can just move on. Like there's days where it's like, I could lace up and just come off the back fence. And eventually I did do that, which we'll probably talk about later with injuries and everything. But there's just days where it's like, oh man, I'd just love to come off the back fence or be the guy to stop someone coming off the back fence. Because you do it for so long, it's ingrained in how you approach things. Yeah. Like there's days where it's like, I'd just love to upend somebody. But at the end of the day, you just don't because it's just not right. Yeah. But yeah, you just giving up a certain part of you to move on to something is never easy because you've done it for so long. I don't like using the word retire, but I keep using it because it's like, no, you've done it, put it away. Like that's it. You've done enough, put it away. But I keep having these urges and wanting to do that. But then powerlifting resists those urges because I get the similar stimulus and then it just goes away. Just clears my head noise.
Yeah.
And I do get a fair bit of head noise. Like this brain's been rattled a bit, but the noise is always there. Yeah. So just easy ways to just get rid of that noise by sticking to what gets rid of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, it's putting a positive in place of a negative.
That's right.
Like it's like when people are addicted to drugs or alcohol or like gambling, any negative kind of thing, they often will switch it out for a positive habit.
That's right.
And it's like it's still an addiction, but it's one that serves you positively and you get better.
That's right. It does feed into those similar emotions, but they're attached to something that is going to benefit you in either short term, long term, or whatever. It's going to benefit you somewhere.
Yeah. And so in that interim time where you were thinking about giving it up and you found powerlifting and it started to fill that void, And you said before that you didn't have a lot going for you. You didn't really know what you wanted to do career-wise. You're just labouring and stuff. What was that period of time like for you? Were you really just kind of lost, didn't know what to do?
I'll straight out say it, I was lost. I was making real bad decisions. Like I was drinking, smoking, and I'll say it now, I was doing some heavy-duty stuff just because I wasn't doing it when I was playing footy because I was so focused, disciplined. I didn't want to be those guys in the headlines. So I never touched it, never went near it. But I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. I just went full off the end, made some really bad calls, got myself close to being in a lot of trouble. That sort of reeled me in. There are certain things now I still do it. Obviously nothing heavy duty, anything ridiculous. But I don't do any of that stuff now, knowing that I just had a moment where I just let loose. Just all the stuff that I told myself I can't do it, I just went and did it.
Yeah.
No one stopped me. No one was able to stop me.
Yeah.
So I think it was a period of about, if I say 6 to 7 months, I just went off the rails and just lost it.
And how old were you at this time?
Just over 20.
Yeah.
So I was young enough to do dumb stuff, but old enough to know better.
Yeah.
But I didn't care. I wouldn't say I was in a bad place. It was just in an empty void, just letting it loose, just giving up on it all. I was working, probably not the most desirable employee in the world because I just didn't care. But I just let loose, did what I wanted. And then eventually when I had a couple of bad calls from other people that have either, they let themselves go and they fell apart further than I did, I was like, well, hang on, I don't want to end up like that. All right, well, I better start reining this in, better stop this, cut off some bad ties, made better choices, just stuck to being in the gym and going to work.
Yeah.
Kept my nose down, did the same thing.
And how soon did it turn into, like, has it been, obviously, any form of self-improvement's like a lifetime kind of pursuit. You're always doing something.
Yeah.
Right? But when did you start to see that positive turnaround when you're like, hang on, this is actually making my life better? I'm going to follow this down the rabbit hole kind of thing.
Probably just after I turned 21, 22. Because, everyone else around my age, they're having their 21st and just getting on it and having a wild time. Me, around the same time I turned 21, I was wanting to do a bodybuilding show. And I was fairly lean, but I was glow in the dark white. I was never going to get on stage. Looked like Sheamus from WWE. It was bad. But I did bodybuilding for a bit, and I thought I'll give this a run because I didn't even know powerlifting was approachable for me at that point because at that point there really wasn't anything in the hunter that was popular for powerlifting. Yeah. So it was more, there was a few bodybuilders I knew from footy, so I just trained with them and sort of went down that road for a little bit. And then I realised that my stature doesn't stand out in a bodybuilding perspective. But then you see those old videos of Ed Cohen and the original videos of Andrei Milanichev and all those big names that even Andy Bolton and was it a couple of big names like Big Zahir. Yeah. Like you see all that kind of stuff and the OG Brian Shaw where he dropped the sandbag in the water. You see all that and it's like, I want to do that kind of stuff because then I don't have to worry about all this boring stuff of dieting and all that kind of stuff. I can actually live a life and do it. So then I found out that there was a novice powerlifting comp and it was held by Fit for Kings. Yeah, Fit for Kings, yeah. Did that and that just opened the door to something so much more fun than what I was doing. And then I realised, well, hang on, there's a bloke here that does this. I'll go and see what's his coaching thing about. Yeah. Went and spoke to Leroy and signed up with him, trained under him, found out how narcissistic, sadistic you can be with raps. And then it's just like putting on strap and tape from footy. So that easily crossed over that feeling of wanting to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that brought me in. The whole you're working up for weeks and weeks up until one moment where you can just put in all this effort. It's like, that's awesome. I want that. The more I did it, the more addicted I got. Actually, I met my partner while I was doing that, and we've been together since pretty much the same time we started. Well, the same time I started with Leroy. Pretty much the same time then. It's just she's been following my career through that and everything else. But from that moment, powerlifting was like, this is cool. I want to do this. This is what I enjoy. And I just stuck to it because it was just easy for me to stick to.
So it wasn't necessarily the first comp that you kind of fell in love with it?
No, it was the process that I fell in love with.
Afterwards.
The process itself was more what I fell in love with because you play footy, you train Tuesday, Thursday, play Saturday. Okay, you lose on Saturday, you got 12 more weeks to get to finals. But if I know I only have one shot to get to a win, like for 12 weeks, that sounded more fun to me. It's like, all right, I've got 12 weeks to get from here to here. All right, I can do that. And then you sort of start, you don't get addicted to the numbers. You get addicted to how much more you can put on each week, how much effort you can put in. And then obviously the reps drop, standard-wise. Reps drop, weight increases. This gets more fun the closer we get to it. You have one big week of, like, exert yourself in the gym, in a controlled environment, rest, do it again. Yeah. That was awesome. That stuff was just, that was the addicting part to me, not just having to repeat the same thing every week and try and get better at it, even though you're still recovering from the last week you may have lost at. So it's like, okay, well, I can have a series of little wins or little losses, fix them before I get to the big event. Having one big event, then just rest. That's awesome. Yeah. That's the shit that gets me out of bed for that kind of stuff, yeah.
So it's kind of, it's similar in like what you did for footy, but it's taking all these kind of controllable things.
That's right. You take all those controllable aspects, but you spread them over. Instead of having it weekly, you have it 3 monthly. That's as a novice. Yeah. You spread that out over a larger period. The more proficient you get, it gets longer and longer. As we spoke about off camera, longer periods between comps is more important because then you start learning. All right, well, I need this phase. Then I need that phase. Then I need to do this. You learn about different variants of the same lift that you've just been practicing for the last 3 years. That's cool. You end up finding an interesting lift or interesting exercise or phase that you actually get attached to. That makes you better as an athlete. That's pretty cool. And powerlifting isn't just straight bars. That's just awesome. Like you got there's that transformer bar I've seen floating around. That's like 7 bars in one without attachments. Like just saying, instead of just having like an ovoid ball and a pair of boots, you got all these toys to play with. Like you got all these toys. There's never a boring moment. If it gets boring, it's because you're not expanding. That's the thing that makes it cool. If you're not learning something or taking something away from seeing somebody else do it, that makes it boring. So then boring stuff you just don't do. Yeah. Like
it's funny. It's a boring sport, but the process is quite complicated.
It's and I've said it before. Like other people say, "Oh, we'll come and watch you." I'm not saying it's a terrible sport to spectate, but if you don't follow it, it's the same thing 13 times repeated. It gets heavier. Yeah, and it's like as an athlete, it's awesome because you get to see people work their way up. But from the outside perspective, it only looks good on social media because they see one moment. And that's all they need to see. It's like watching a footy highlights or any sports highlights. You can watch the whole game and nothing happens, but there could be 5 small moments that make one huge event. That's your highlight reel. Yeah. But you've got 9 lifts. So you can do that over 9 lifts in the space of, to be honest, I haven't actually counted how many hours any comp's actually gone for. I don't even look at the clock. Yeah. Like you can put all those highlights into however long a comp takes. Like that's more interesting. And then you just sort of follow that and it just feeds into itself. Then there's obviously times where it does get toxic, which you do fall into eventually. Everyone goes for it at least once where training becomes toxic because you get so fixated on winning or so fixated on gaining that you'll do anything you need to do. And for me, that big thing was sacrificing working, which I was doing when I was playing footy. Yeah. So I was starting to treat it exactly the same. Yeah. When you start looking down that toxic route of I'll do anything to get better, you start becoming not like you know how the old school West Side, like Greg Panora, they were just working, stacking shelves, but also doing those things on the side. They were making money to be at West Side. Yeah. You start doing that, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You can't do that. And I started doing that, bouncing from job to job, trying to find the easiest way for me to be in the gym. That's not how you should do it. And that's what I ended up doing. Yeah. That's why I'm a first year apprentice at the age of 30. But yeah, no, it's just you start looking at it all, you start playing with it all. Yeah. And you have to experience it at least once. Otherwise you're not experiencing strength sports as a total. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you could call it, like I can see why, and definitely there's multiple examples of it being toxic. It's very easy to do. You can see it, and you know I've been through it myself where your comp prep becomes the be all and end all.
That's right.
Of what you're doing, and it's like I started powerlifting when I had 2 kids already, so what I was sacrificing was time with my family, and that was like that was when it was, you know, it took my wife going, all right, that's enough comp preps this year.
Yeah.
For me to go, oh shit, like I'm like putting this before the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's that kind of concept of going all in on it. And it's like if you have the opportunity to go all in, you should experience it.
Yeah, 100%.
And go all in.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be at the detriment to the positive things in your life, I guess.
It shouldn't be number one on your list.
Yeah.
Like your life outside the gym is actually more important than you in the gym, because that will affect you in the gym.
Yeah.
And I learned that. So Taylor got up me like very early on that I should be focused on other things than just the gym, because I was losing everything. So it took me a long time to learn that. Once I did learn that, it just becomes so much more easier, and the decisions I made after that really did affect me in the gym in a positive way, even though it looked negative.
Yeah.
So obviously during COVID, all the gyms were shut.
Yeah.
And there's only so much equipment that you can share around if you're borrowing from the gym you're training at, especially if it's a strength gym like Hunter Strength was at the time. There's only so much that can be shared around between every member to get what you can and can't get out of it.
Yeah.
So obviously you go without a bit of equipment for a while, you start getting a bit ingenuitive. Like I was using that strongman equipment for a bit just to keep myself moving and strong again. But at the end of the day, building that home gym looked like a negative, but because I was like, no, I'm not getting stuck again, I built that home gym, and now me having my career as it is now and having the gym at home, I probably do work a little bit more than a normal person would. I do travel a fair bit, like about an hour each way to and from work. But I can come home covered in grease and coal and just whatever grease I'm covered in, the oils and everything, reek of BO and just really bad shit. Get in the gym, train for an hour and a half, have my shower.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about showering, going to a gym and doing all the rigmarole. And even if you are training at a strength gym and anything like that, you want to just get in and get out. Whereas at a commercial gym, and if I run into someone I've either played footy with or seen them playing footy or whatever, they're going to want to have a yarn. And it's like, I'm not antisocial, but it's like, come on, man, I just want to get home. I want to get this out of the way, get home, and repeat again.
Yeah.
So it may look like really stupid when I have my home gym set up, and it is agricultural as it gets. A lot of people would look at it and go, how do you feel safe doing that? It's either I get it done now or it doesn't get done. Yeah. So all my welds have held up, even though I'm not a boilie, so pretty happy with that. But everything I've built had a purpose to go in that gym. So putting life first, putting your career, your family, all that kind of stuff first allows you to do that stuff. Even if you don't have to dedicate as much energy towards the gym, dedicating all your eggs into that basket destroys what you have at home. And at the end of the day, that's 5% of your day. An hour is 5% of the day. If you dedicate 5% of your day there, but you put 100% of energy, you've got 23 more hours. Yeah. Regardless of sleep, you've got 23 more hours. So all your energy needs to be there. Exert that 5% when you need it most. Yeah. And that's something that a lot of young athletes need to remember, that just because it's the most exciting thing in your life doesn't make it the most important. And that's a hard one to accept early on. Yeah. Yeah, especially when you find it and you fall in love with it. That's right. It's the coolest thing you have going, especially the introverted kids or the younger people that don't exactly have much that they do outside of what they do for work. It is easily addictive because it's a results-based oxytocin. Yeah. Because the more you do something, you just get that feeling, that energy, that positive feeling. Even if it's a bad session, you still get the endorphins. Yeah. We all know that. Even if it's a bad session, you still get it. Come home, you feel relaxed anyway. But it's so easy to get trapped in that 5% of the day that ends up becoming 100% of all your energy. It's like, yeah, I can see. And when you explain it that way,
not that I've ever looked at it as like you not taking it seriously, because you obviously take it seriously. But when you explain it that way, you've actually made it more of a priority because you've put it at home.
Yeah.
But you've made it a priority so that it doesn't damage your biggest priority.
That's right.
Your partner and your kid, you know, your family.
I've built it in a way where I get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Where I get my time to be me, what I feel is me, but then they get what is me. So I get what I feel is me, they get what is me.
Yeah.
So even though, people think that, he's in the gym all the time. It's like, no, I usually spend more of my time tormenting my 2-year-old than doing anything else, or tormenting the missus. Like it's something that, even though social media, we all see it, social media it's just a highlight reel. Like what I put on Instagram is just what I put in for myself, as this is what I do for me. Every now and then I'll throw the little fella in there, or throw Taylor in there, because that's what makes me me. But at the end of the day, the gym isn't you. You just got to try and remember, don't get too attached to it. Even if you're having a series of successes and everything else is still the same, you're not the only person in the equation. So sometimes they're just feeding your energy to feed it into something else. And then you forget their bucket's not as full as yours. So that's a big thing that I learnt the hard way with a lot of heavy conversations me and Taylor had a lot of. Like there was a lot of those heavy conversations, because even though I heard it, I wasn't listening because I was still thinking about something else. So when you have those heavy conversations, you've got to remember, even though they're coming out with it, you've got to look at it from an open mindset. Otherwise, you're not going to pick up on it and you won't change. Because even though it might not be change, it feels like change.
Yeah.
You just got to focus on doing something else first, and then go back to what you're doing later. That's it's not exactly. It's the hardest thing to explain. It's like you got to focus on everything else so you can focus on that.
Yeah.
And especially with someone who, I wouldn't say I've got ADHD, but I have a very strong passion towards little things that seem to take up a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big unit that's a massive nerd. Like I love me Star Wars, and that does take up a lot of my personality. Yeah. And those little things I do correlate a lot of, you know how you're in high school and they always, in English, you do all that stuff where you learn about how to do like a movie report. I wish I don't remember how to do that, because now I can pull apart every movie I watch. Yeah. But that's just something that you need to start paying attention to everything on the outside. Yeah. So then you can see on the inside, which is a weird way of me saying, like, just because it's being said, there's something else being heard. So you got to remember to have that conversation properly. Yeah. So then you learn how to focus over here.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, as someone who's been in a relationship for 17 years, I've been married for 12, I want to say. I think maybe 11. It's a long time. And we, like, a lot of people go, oh, yeah, this is so, like, impressive that you've been together for so long. It's like, we've worked really fucking hard. Oh, bro.
We've been together for, we're 7 years. Yeah, 7 years in, next year. And it's around Valentine's Day, unfortunately. So that's on my bad. But, 7 years is the same thing. There's a lot of heavy conversations that have got to be had. Otherwise, you don't learn. No. Like, they say a relationships or passions or whatever you're doing should be easy. It's called work for a reason. Like, it's got to be hard work, otherwise it's not worth it. Yeah. Like, the easiest jobs don't pay, the harder jobs pay. Same thing goes with your life, relationships, the energy you put into what your hobby is. If it's not easy, it doesn't reward you. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Well, that's it. If it's a hard task, or it's complicated, or it's grueling, the satisfaction is much, like, the reward of it is bigger. Yeah. Yep. It's the same for the gym, but that's right. Relationships are very much like that, and fitting such a large passion that takes up so much of your life, like in terms of what you have to do outside of the gym to be better in the gym. Like you said, your relationships, whether that's your partner or your family or your friends or whatever, has to kind of fit that as well. And it shouldn't necessarily be that you fit it into around the gym. You fit the gym in with your life so that you don't get to a point where you have nothing else but the gym.
Yeah, that's right. Like, it's, I I don't have the social life that I used to have because when I did go through that little dark blur, I did cut off a lot of my external friends. I do have a lot of people I run into that I'm still friends with, but social group wise, it's now down to a very small number.
Yeah,
I could probably be able to count it on one hand easily, no problem. But I have a lot of people that I know, but I don't give them all of my energy because I have energy that needs to be somewhere else. So just factoring all my resources to that. Like at first it was just me and Taylor. Now I've got Oakland. So then obviously there's more energy that needs to be put into a little person, especially if they're half of you. You've got to, like, and I see a lot of things that are coming out now of him. I was like, all right, I want to cultivate that. So that's where my energy's going. So yeah, it's like you've got to do all that kind of shit to focus on the real things that are going to reward you eventually. Like, yeah, having a child is not going to reward me financially or fiscally or whatever you want to call it. But seeing him become him, that's going to create more reward for me. It'll make me happier in the long run. So just fixating on a couple of round red circles.
Yeah.
No.
You can have both. Like,
that's right, you can.
There's no reason you can't.
That's right.
You can do stuff at a high level and still have a life. And
100%. Like you do see it. Like it's out there. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
But you've got to remember that at home is more important. So where you sleep is where it's most important. And that's a big thing I take away. And I always say it's just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a big one. Like, and going through a prep, because even if you're doing all these things to kind of mitigate those issues at home, when you go through a comp prep, you're going to be grumpy, tired, fatigued, a prick most of the time.
100%. Like, I've got a foul temper when it comes to me being tired. Like, and I know it, I'm aware of it, but you forget it.
Yeah.
Because you're that burnt out at your own candle.
Yeah.
You forget the other side of the candle doesn't want to get any burnt. Like you try and be a good dad, you try and be a good partner, try and be a good worker.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's just days where it's like, oh, I am having a bad day, leave me alone. And I'll be honest, and Will's probably going to shoot me for this one. There's days where I've felt like that. I was like, I'm not going to the gym today. I am not going, or I will skip it and I will do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And just push me back a day. There's days I'll probably I've done it maybe once or twice. And it does burn, but at the end of the day, I need that because even though you're fixated, all of your perception of what you're doing is towards one goal. There's days where it might be getting closer to it. You need that day to just go, nah, I'm putting the hammer down now. I'm going to stop. Just for a day, I need to rest. Yeah, especially when your eating's gone out of whack because you've had a big week working. Nutritionally, supplement-wise, emotional stress, financial stress, relationship stress in general, because you're trying to be the best you can be, you just burn yourself out. Take a day, sleep it off, wake up next morning and go again.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be better because your stress levels are going to come down, your recovery's going to go up.
100%. So I've become best friends with cortisol at this moment. Like there's that much of it hanging around me. It's
Well, having done, now that you're coached by Will, my former coach, who I love dearly, he's one of my good friends and I love him, but I know exactly what you're going through in terms of that. But I'm that guy that I would skip sessions. I skip sessions all the time. I don't not do them. I just push them back. Because I'm like, nah, and yesterday was one of those days I had to train yesterday. To not screw up my whole week. And I was so burnt out on Friday that I was getting myself stressed about training. I'm like, I just need a day at home. I've barely seen the kids this holidays. I just want to chill out and have a day at home and get like some other ducks in a row at home, like sort some stuff out, do some washing or whatever it is. And in reality, I did nothing. I just ate food all day. And hung out with the kids.
And those are days that actually give you better reaction to going into training. Like I'll straight out on a Saturday morning, if I've got the little fella at home with me when Taylor goes to work, I'll spend all day resting. And even though I've got all day, the gym is not going anywhere. It physically won't move from where it is. I'm 15 metres away from it the entire time. But I will not go out into my shed until at least 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because it's like, no, I'm at home, I'm going to rest. Little fella wants my energy for the day.
Yeah.
When we go out, we go outside in between, but I'm not going to the gym. I can stare straight at it and I'm like, nah, 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. I'll go out there at 4 o'clock. And even though when it gets dark, and I'll train in the dark every now and then because I haven't got enough spotlights in the moment, but I'll be like, nah, I am not going out there. And that took a long time to learn that, like a long time, even before Oakland come along. It took a while to learn. Just wait until this afternoon, you might feel a bit better.
Yeah.
Like, have a rest. Like, you deserve a rest.
Yeah.
It's like, I get told all the time, no, you need to rest. And it's like, I don't want to rest.
Yeah. Well, and it's like setting boundaries, right?
Yeah.
With other people, you can set boundaries but you can also set internal boundaries for your own behaviour.
Yeah.
And one of those can be, I'm actually going to listen sometimes when my body's telling me don't train.
Yep.
And it will make you better. It won't make you worse sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Like,
Sometimes you do need, and Will said this to me, I'm sure he said it to you, now's time to put your foot on the gas.
Yep.
You have to fucking step up now.
Yep.
And there's a time for that. There's also a time when you're deep in an off season and that you can just go, no, I don't need to train today.
That's right.
Actually not going to make me better.
Yep. Because if I do that, I'm going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Or if my chest is feeling a bit burnt out, and I know I've got 64 reps coming my way the next day, it's like, that is not going to be 64 reps. Like, last Monday, perfect example. I was actually with Will at Nemesis, and he could see it, that I was just struggling because a couple of late nights, bit of travelling, 5 hours there, 5 hours back, all that kind of stuff. He saw it, and he's like, right, do one more set, finish it, do the 8 sets. I wasn't getting 8 reps. I was just gassing out before I get to 6. He goes, no, do your 8 sets, hit the road, go home, go and rest. Effectively, that's him saying hit the brakes, which I didn't think about until I was halfway home. I was like, no, he just effectively told me to pump the brakes, get home and rest. And that was smart. I've always told myself I like to be the easily coached athlete. Sometimes I am a bit of a pain in the ass because I will put the hammer down too early or too late, but I like to be the easily coached. I know what I'm looking at. I just need to be pointed in the right direction. But when he effectively said, put the brakes on, that was a big moment personally. It was like, I'm the one that needs to be told the most when to stop. Because if I don't stop, I don't know where I'll end up. Yeah. I don't have brakes on my system.
Yeah. I think it's a hard thing to learn. Like, having come to training later in life, I needed to learn to put my foot down.
Yeah.
Like, I was lazy. I've never been in a gym until I was in my 30s. Like, didn't know what half the machines did or what the movements were, or I couldn't tell you. So putting my foot down was what I had to learn. Now that I'm a bit older and a lot stronger, I now have to go, okay, now I can revert back to listening and resting. And not doing it too much. That's the hard one.
Because there's days you feel like, I am on top of the world. I can bang out a max effort deadlift today. And I'm coming in tomorrow to bench. You pull that deadlift, go home and have a sleep. You wake up, you're like, I told myself I'm going to do it, but I feel like absolute shit. It was like, nah, I better not.
I did that recently. This week I had not a big raw squat. A max effort raw squat with a hard variation. And it fucked me up for days. Like, 4 days I was sore. And I'm like, far out, I haven't been this sore in ages. And it was just that variation just hit me in the right spots, and it was only like total load with chains was like 230 or something. But just that particular movement pattern just did me in for the whole week, and I'm like, all right, I need to like pick up my nutrition and sleep a bit better and get more food in. So I can recover, but also, I might take an extra day. Before I do the bench session.
And like, you just sort of touched on it then, like, it's the 1%ers. Like, you forget those little 1%ers all add up over time. Like, for a while there, like when I did bomb at States, I was battling or figuring out the hard way. I had sleep apnea. My nutrition was shocking. My rest was abysmal. There was a lot of stuff going on in between, bit of stress, I was starting out as an apprentice. So there's a lot of like, I'm learning here, and it's like, holy shit, I'm too old to be learning this. But I'm like, no, you can learn this, you can do it. But there's a lot of stuff in between where I was battling my own internal little voices and everything like that, and it all turned into shit when we got to the opening deadlifts. And I was just like, my body's had enough.
Yeah.
There's something going on here. I've had enough. And I knew it for a while that my quads always carried all my stress, because when they'd bind up, it looked like I had knots. And it's like, no, I need to rest. I need to recover. But I just ended up ignoring it, pushing it. And then that's when I bombed at States. And I learned that day that I was like, all right, we've got to fix a few things, do a full-blown reset. And now, look, we're heading into Pro Raw now. I went to Pro Raw before as a green athlete, so everything was still relatively new. So I wasn't actually looking at it as an actual athlete's perspective. I was still learning everything. Yeah. So I was probably like a lost puppy in the gym half the time. So I was just doing things because I was just told. I was just training, learning to do things, doing as I was told. Yeah. The older I've gotten, it's like, oh shit, your body is beaten up. You need a bit of rest. This is more important than you grabbing that bar today. Like, so it's like, I know I probably could work on a bit better with me and my sleep, because I do go down a bit of a doom scroll every now and then, but who doesn't? Nutrition wise, yeah, if I say 80% of the time I'm on point, that 20% it does blow out. Yeah. Like, I'll be honest, I'm probably going to get shot when I get home, but I will grab a 4-pack of Krispy Kremes on the way to work when I get fuel, and it'll be on the receipts for when tax time comes around. But every now and then I'll do it. I won't do it all the time, but I probably should be a little bit smarter about those things. But as long as you're aware of what those 1%ers are and you work towards fixing them, they will eventually fix themselves. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, there's some 1%ers that are just a little heavier than others.
Yeah, they carry a larger percentage of that.
That's right. It might only look like 1%, but it's like, that's a
heavy 1%.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Calibrated 1%. That one.
Yeah, that's right.
So you first started competing in 2018.
Yeah.
When did you start taking it kind of seriously?
If I say right before COVID, probably when I did start taking it the most serious. Yeah. Because I was like, okay, well, I'm going back to Pro Raw a second time. I've earned the ability to go back a second time. Yep. First time was on a fluke when I squatted the 360 and had no idea what I was doing. Completely natural, didn't know what I was doing. I was just told to squat. Okay, fair call. That's what I did. But then I was going back again. I earned my position to go back again. So I was like, all right, well, we need to start getting a little serious about this, because even though I'm still in unknown water, I need to do something about this. Yeah. And I didn't go to nationals that same year, where Ryan Williams bombed on his nationals. It was the early days of him pushing that 1,000 total that he got to. Yeah. And I was like, man, if I just went to nationals, I would have won that day. But I was fixated on other things. Like, it was all good stuff I was focused on. It was like, that was a win that I missed out on an opportunity on. But when I started worrying, it's not about the wins you get, it's where the wins are. So I was like, okay, well, I don't need to do that. So then that attitude started. So, well, I don't need to do this comp. I need to do this one, or I need to do that, or I need to work here, do this little one here, get myself ready, come back again to, do something a bit bigger. Because Taylor was always like, stop competing, be a showstopper once every blue moon. I think we've all figured out that I end up doing that now, that I'll take a while off, come back out of nowhere, do something, take some more time off. And that's sort of worked its way in. I'll do a couple of small single lift events and have a bit of a play here and there. But that's eventually what I've learnt to do, is just you stop. When you start getting serious, you stop and you do less, which sounds so silly. But even though you're training just as much, you stop and you do less. So you're doing less comps, less big events, and you just compete when you need to compete. So that was when I started taking it seriously. Instead of just doing a comp because I wanted to, I did comps because I had to or I needed to. And then obviously with COVID, that shut me down. I started getting serious and it shut me down. I was like, okay, well, I was miffed. We all were. I don't know a person who wasn't miffed if they were prepping for anything at that time or trying to prep for anything. That's when all the home gym stuff started, and you work towards something. It gets shut down again for the second wave. And then, as you know, I was doing that dabble in multi-ply and a bit of equip lifting, and I think that was more enjoyable than when I started doing raw lifting, like that whole novice series that I was doing, and then getting into that and enjoying that, because it was a whole different level of learning. That was interesting because it looks the same, or partially looks the same. Until it's the same sport but looks similar. It's sort of like rugby to league. Like it's effectively the same result and outcome, different way of looking at it. And I was like, okay, well, this is cool. And then we got the squat suit, we got the single ply F6 Fury, the F6 shirt. I had a deadlift suit, but I wasn't going to because I realised too late I didn't need to have a deadlift suit to deadlift in a comp. I could do it raw and it'd still be considered in the deadlift total. So that's what I ended up doing. But learning a whole new skill allowed me to actually help in my raw stuff unknowingly. Didn't realise it, but it was just more or less just having fun with it. Going back to that, I'm green, I'm learning, that actually helped to get when I started taking it seriously again. But then when I started taking it seriously again, I got encouraged to go back and play a couple of games of footy. And then, of course, we do that 885 total. And I promised someone I was working with at the time when we were building house frames that after I do this comp, give me 2 weeks and I'll come and play a few games of footy just to dabble my feet in it. I was keen on it. I was interested. Was still in the middle of COVID, so it was all a question mark if I was ever going to really do anything with powerlifting ever again. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. Well, I won't be much different. No, I was about 35 kilos heavier when I first started playing good footy. So I ended up playing footy for Woodbury. And shout out to those boys. They were amazing. They took me in, no dramas, and they were good blokes to play footy with. But playing the 2-3 games I had, it's like, oh no, this is not what it turned out to be. And I was having fun. It was good until the knee was like, no, bud, you've had enough. You've squatted over 400 kilos in training. You've attempted it in competition, and now you want me to run and sidestep and do all this spin and stuff? Like, no, bud. And it's raining. No, mate, you're not doing that. Knee was like, no, mate, sit down. You've had enough. Then had the ACL and all the ligament reconstructions. And
So did you actually damage it when you played footy, or was it just a pre-existing
I honestly think there may have been something underlying for a very long time, but I don't think it was ever anything to be considered a niggle. Or if it was, I didn't associate it as a niggle. But then once it just went, that changed everything I looked at, because now I had to start from square one properly start from square one, which wasn't exactly a nice thing for my partner to put up with for a while. But no, learning everything from square one again allowed me to regrow the passion for powerlifting in a healthier mindset, because I was like, all right, I need to recover and be healthier and come back, not stronger, but better. So it wasn't the fact of looking at getting stronger or getting strength back in the knee. It was just about getting me back to function. And that was the key thing, because even though I still was passionate about powerlifting, I wasn't really in it. Like, it was, I wanted to do powerlifting, but I didn't know where I stood. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. And when I did get excited about powerlifting, not an inconvenience, but something would pop up that would have to tell me, no, it needs to go on the back seat. Still train, but keep it on the back seat, because one day you'll do it again. It's sort of like it was back, forward. Like, I went from working at an egg farm where one week you work 6 days a week, another week you work 5 days a week. So you're bouncing back and forward, and it's agricultural. So your finish time is a question mark. So it's like, all right, well, training now takes a back seat, obviously, because that's an important job. It's got to be done. Then when you go, I went from there to manufacturing, building house frames. So we were based on a quota. About 40% of our wage was based on a quota. So you end up focusing more on that. And I'll be honest, going back into heavy labour like that after so long, I actually didn't train for almost 3 weeks at all, just completely at all. Because I was like, I need to get physically conditioned again to do those heavy duty jobs again.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're hauling house frames over your head, throwing them on big trolleys and shit like that. You had to do that. Otherwise, you'd never last. And I was there for just shy of 2 years, and that's when I did that equip meet and decided to play footy again because everybody else was playing footy and having fun with it. So then obviously I had to go back to that job, recover the knee. So it was never about getting strong again. It was just about function. Yeah. I need to be able to function, need to be able to put bread on the table because I had a mortgage, had to be able to put that bread on the table. That was the big part of it. But then once I had enough of that job, and I went and worked for Titan as a TA. Come out of that with like, okay, well, I can get back into training now and start taking it semi-seriously again. I've got regularity. I've got all this structure set in place. Now I just need to be able to put my boots on the ground here and then start training again seriously. And I was training with Dill McDonald at that time, and it was good. And when he decided to hang it up, I sort of went a bit freelanced, and I was still following the same program. But he always said, you need to go and see Will. I was like, eventually I'll do it. It was one of the things, you keep putting it off, you're doing the right thing, you're still making progress. I was like, right, once I finish this prep, like just doing it freelance to myself, I'll do it. I'll message Will and I'll do it. And that's when I went and totaled that 910 at Dubbo. And the Monday leading into that, there was a vehicle accident, and ended up having bruised cartilage and a bit of torn rib cartilage. And we all know busted ribs, even if it's just rib cartilage, is no fun squatting, benching, or deadlifting. Somehow survived to squat 380, bench 210, and deadlift 320. That was hard. But then that also, I had to draw a lot of energy that I played footy with to somehow survive that day. You can get beaten all day, but you don't get beaten in your own head. Somehow I took that energy and put that onto a powerlifting platform. And then I started feeling serious again. So I was like, all right, well, this is what I'm doing again. Even though I had the home gym, I was still training, I was doing all that fun stuff in between. I started taking it seriously at that point when I squatted 380. And it sounds so weird because I was doing it for so long, but I actually started taking it seriously last year. Which is so, the more you think about it, the weirder it gets. Like from 2018 to 2023, I thought I was serious until I squatted 910. Not squatted 910, total 910. And that's something that I get a bit cranky about with myself. It's like, I should have been more serious about this. But I had to learn. Like, learning is a big part of powerlifting. And if you tell someone that I've learned everything, you've learnt nothing. So, that was.
If you tell someone you learn everything, you're probably an online coach in their first year.
That's right. Like, if you can fix someone's 200 kilo squat and turn them into a 400 kilo squatter, let me know, because that'd be nice. But
well, it's almost like not like you finally started taking it seriously. You just took your understanding of what serious is changed.
I was treating it the same seriousness as what I was when I was playing footy. I was serious about it. I was dedicated to doing it, but my heart wasn't in it completely. Like, the back end of my career my footy career felt exactly the same as when I was sort of taking it seriously as a powerlifter. I was serious, didn't really realise what my serious was. So I just wasn't in it completely, because I had to learn those other little things we talked about, like how to manage your relationships, your life in general, your career, where to throw your energy, all that fun stuff. You have to learn all that before you can start taking something properly seriously. And that's probably the big thing that I had to take away from, is I had to go through that 5 years of not knowing what I was doing to then realise, all right, that's what we're doing. This is how we do it. And then we did that 910 total, come home, went back to work. I wanted to get better in my career. I wanted to stay in the mining sector or the heavy equipment sector. I wanted more than what I was being given. So I was like, all right, well, I need more than this. So I went and technically I'm a TA right now.
Yeah.
But I lead into an apprenticeship next year, but I am treated as an apprentice. And I don't expect to be treated anything less than an apprentice. Because even like 30-year-old, give me a broom. If you tell me to use a broom, I'll master that shit in 6 months, maybe 6 weeks. But but that's the kind of thing that I chose to do to better myself in that way, which will allow me to go back to the home gym. As we've gone on about a few times, is had to better my life to go back here, and I can do better there. So now I can be serious with a rigid set structure. And now I can have my family time, my own time, and I'm not in a bad place where I can't do what I want to do without having to sacrifice something. Like everything's pretty much set up that I can do something without sacrificing a whole lot. Maybe renovations on the house because I'm either at work or at home in the gym or sleeping. There's some renovations I wouldn't mind doing, but you know, there's this clock that everyone says you've got the same 24 hours. No one has the same 24 hours. If anyone, especially the online influencers, they tell you that you've all got 24 hours in a day. I was like, I'll show you 24 hours.
Yeah, you're 24 hours when you're a 24-year-old with no children and no mortgage and maybe just a job in the gym.
Yeah, it's a totally different thing. You can get up at 3 a.m. and have a nap at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Go back to work, you split shift in the gym, training a couple of people, go home, maybe play video games for 4 hours and then go to bed.
Yeah.
That sounds like an absolutely amazing lifestyle. Throw a kid, mortgage, a big job, and then the amount of time you actually train on top of that, it is not the same 24 hours. No. Like, yeah. And I actually, not that I respect people more, but when I know that they've got a big life in them and then they do that stuff, their results that they put on a platform, to me, is more approachable. It's like, yeah, man, that's awesome. Good shit. Like, don't get me wrong, any big total is a big total. But if I know someone's put a 740 total up, but they work lifestyle roster or fly in, fly out, and that 740 is a big number, I don't give a shit if it's 740 or 940. That's a big number.
Yeah.
So you got to appreciate everybody that steps up and does that stuff, even though it's 24 hours. It's not the same. So everyone's results are going to be the same, be different, but the effort's the same.
Yep.
And I think that's the real thing that makes powerlifting awesome, is that you can have 12 people in a flight. All 12 of those people are putting in 110%, regardless if you're first, last, whatever weight class you're in. That's the appealing part that makes powerlifting the most approachable sport to anybody in the world. It just, people get fixated on winning. And that's the thing that it's only good if you're winning, if you're in that elite sector.
Yeah.
And I would not consider myself anything close to elite, even though numbers say otherwise. Yeah. I would not consider myself elite, because if you start doing that, you're ruining everybody else, because then you think you're better than everybody else. Why would you do that? You started exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's a volunteer-based sport. Shitting on people for starting kills a sport.
Yeah.
Like, why do that?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
That's a very good point to make. I also, to come back to something you said just earlier, is that it took you 5 years to understand what your version of serious in this sport is.
Yeah.
A lot of people come into the sport now and want to be the best in 3 years or 5 years.
Yep.
They might not even have that. They just want to be the best yesterday.
Yeah.
They don't look at it and go, well, there's a process to, you have to understand how to train. Yes, you may have a coach who understands how to train, but you need to understand how to train for you too, and to auto-regulate what you're doing, because you're not going to get any better if you just do what you're told.
That's right.
All the time. Sometimes you have
Sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes it's got to be done, but then there's days it's like, no, you got to put your own breaks, not breaks, but you got to put your own question up there. Yeah. It's like, well, what purpose is that doing for me? It doesn't feel good. Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
And coaching it's a collaboration. Oh, so you work with any coach or you coach any athlete. It's not, this is what you do and you do everything exactly like I said it. It's like, this is the ideal version of what I want you to do. If you can do that, great. If you can't, then we adjust accordingly. But you need to understand where and when you have to pull that back. And you can't learn that in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years.
That's right.
And it may change as you get older too.
Yeah, because your body reacts differently to different stimulus and different ways you train. You can't train as hard as you used to, even though you may have whatever supplements in your system or nutrition or sleep record or whatever. You physically can't perform the same.
No.
But if 5 years difference, I can guarantee you no athlete competes exactly the same as they did 5 years ago. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Because there's stress and stimulus in there that changes your body morphology. Even though it's not really a studied thing, you can see it. Anyone can see it. Doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah. Age matters.
That's right.
Yes, you can continue to progress and get better, but you're not going to do it if you don't understand.
That's right.
Where your limits are and when you need to push and pull.
Yep.
In that. So when you started training and you originally got training through Leroy, so he coached you for a while?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell me how 2018 to just after, I can't tell you the year. It was during COVID because I had the home gym and I wanted to focus on work. So eventually I was like, look, I can't get coaching because I can't keep up with the schedule and I didn't want to screw him over. Yeah. So I think it was, he'd be able to tell you.
But so around that time, so
it was during COVID, yeah.
When you learnt to train, you were learning within his system, which he uses a pretty block system,
phases and
a bit of linear periodization, but everything's kind of block phase.
Yep.
And then you did your own thing for a little while, figured out some stuff, played with Equipped.
Yep.
Then when you started with Dylan, Dylan would have had you in a conjugate.
Very much
structure.
Conjugate. Yeah, conjugate structure.
And Will's conjugate, obviously.
Yep.
He does it a little bit differently for Raw, but it's still a conjugate.
It's essentially
version.
the same system, but the difference is that the stimulus changes.
Yeah.
Because Raw, obviously, your energy expenditure is different. Whereas, and you don't have the physical backup of a suit to protect you from any injury or any bench shirt. Even though the bench shirt will kill you if you throw your elbows the wrong way, but it has a potential to protect you from anything going wrong. Yeah. But yeah, that's...
Or like me, you can still tear a pec in a shirt at the top of a bench somehow.
Didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, if you have shitty scapular mobility and you overextend your shoulders at the top of a very heavy bench, you will tear your pec.
That'll do it, eh? Didn't know that.
Yeah. So I did that with the opener leading into Nationals last year, I think.
Yeah, I knew you tore your pec, didn't know how you did it.
Yeah, that's how. I just felt like I pressed it and then I overextended just a little bit and I felt it go pop, 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 pop. And I was like, oh, shit. But so what I'm interested in here is that time between learning to train with Leroy and kind of understanding how you make progress in powerlifting, and block and linear is awesome for that. To that time you started to work in a conjugate structure. What did you do in the middle there?
It was more experimentation and using other aspects that I learned from either footy, Leroy, other people, social media. Yeah. I did go through, I think John Pappas, he sent me that, did you get that little book, the online book of all the conjugate stuff?
Not sure.
But John Pappas sent me a whole, I've still got it in my files. It's a whole series of how conjugate can be worked in other ways.
Oh, okay.
Combat sports, like team sports and other ways. I went through the whole thing because obviously COVID didn't have anything to do. So I read and tried to sort of morph a conjugate style, but also using linear, even though conjugate follows a linear structure from a macro perspective. Yeah. Micro's perspective, you can't see it. Yeah. Because obviously it just doesn't look the same. It's like 2 weeks, 2 days of max effort, 2 days of speed work or similar like rep work or whatever. It's when you start looking at it from a macro scale that you can start seeing it as a linear progression. So I started taking little things here. So, okay, I like doing that. I'll do this. Everything I liked doing was being pulled out of everything. Built my own little thing. And then when I was coaching after I did my Cert 3 and 4, I started using a lot of that conjugate stuff and the stuff that Leroy already taught me and sort of morphed it into something I thought was going to be effective. It was effective for the guys that I did have, but then my interest wasn't in coaching. I wanted to coach, but didn't know. You know how there's like certain coaches that are like bad athletes, but they're amazing coaches. I'm the opposite, a great athlete that cannot express as a coach. Okay. So that I found that difficult for me to express it because of my own mentality towards training, I wasn't exactly the most, not merciful, but I was sort of like, how is this difficult? I'm giving you the information. So I didn't have the head in it.
Yep.
I had the knowledge, just couldn't get it out. So I felt like I was being disingenuous to the guys I did have. So I just gave up on it because it's just not, that's not me. I'd rather be the one getting yelled at than the one being like, hey, look, this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
I'd rather get torn to shreds and build back up again than to be the one to tear someone down, break them down. Even though I'm doing it the right way, my way of expressing it wouldn't come out right. So I was like, all right, well, this is not for me. I'll get out of this.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed it when I was doing it, but my heart just wasn't there because I felt like I was being disingenuous to other people, even though I was doing the right things, just couldn't get it out of my own head.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was
something Will said to me actually when he was on the podcast, was that something he struggled with the most for the longest period of time was the people aspect of being the right coach for each person that he dealt with. And that took him the longest to figure out. Yeah. Which if you know Will, you understand
100%.
why his personality doesn't gel with everybody.
Yeah.
But like some people, like I instantly gelled with him.
Yep.
Even though he's like can be really abrasive and just
straight arrow.
Yeah,
there's no filter. It is
no
straight
filter,
at you.
No sympathy or empathy.
Yeah, see that makes, from the athlete's perspective, that's exactly what I need. Yeah. I need someone to just go, no, this is why we're doing it. Yeah. You're doing it this way for a reason. Fix this to do this. See, when I was at Hunter Sports, we had Graham Murray, the ex-North Queensland Cowboys coach and a Queensland coach. Yep. He was exactly the same. Sure. And the head coach, Sparrow, that was at Hunter Sports, exactly the same. My grandfather, exactly the same. Yeah. If it wasn't dead straight, you weren't getting it. Yeah. And I appreciate that kind of stuff over beating around the bush or being nice about it, wording in a different way. Yeah. Tell me how you see it, express it how you see it, I'll pick it up real quick. Yeah. Because straight arrows hit the target. Yeah. And that's just what I appreciate. But as a coach, I couldn't, as Will went on about, him changing how he approached it, I couldn't do that because I'm still an athlete. Yeah. That's how I receive it. I can't give it how I receive it because somebody else, my partner, if I spoke to her how my grandfather or how coaches have spoke to me, she'd bawl her eyes out. Yeah. I can't cross that line. Yeah, yeah. So I just prefer to be the athlete.
Well, and that's where the art of coaching.
Yeah,
because it's like 100%. Yes, you can do all the things right, like you just said. I understand the method. I understand the process that I need for this person to get better. I can tell them the things that they need to get better, but the art is the communication.
Is expressing it, getting it across the right way, and that's not for me. And all the respect in the world to every coach, yourself, every single coach that can actually do the job. That's a massive job. I just can't do it.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing because there's probably enough of us that are doing not a good job. So
and then I started feeling like, am I going to be like that? Yeah, like that bloke, or you see them all on social media. It's like, oh man, come on, just shut up. Yeah. You're dribbling on just paperwork. Come on, just let it go. But even then, they're just expressing it to a populace that's going to pick it up. I can't. That's just me. Yeah, I get too cranky and too passionate about what I'm doing, then some people are just going to be like, nah.
But that said, like you've had coaches like that that have brought out a very good performance with that approach. So there's probably people out there that if you coach them like that would do extremely well.
Oh, 100%.
Because there's not, there's not only one version of your personality out there. There's going to be multiple people that respond that way to being coached. I'm not one of them. Yeah. Will doesn't coach me like that. Yeah. Like when he was coaching me, he was a lot softer. Yeah. And I only knew him as that person. I would see it come out every now and then, the harder version, and it was when I needed it. Yeah. But he was very good at understanding my personality, and I needed a lot more leniency than probably someone else would. Yeah. But there's going to be people there that would respond to it. So it's not worthless.
Yeah, exactly. It's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, no, it's not a worthless thing. Yeah. It's just Some people pick it up really well. Some people just don't. I was one of those people that didn't.
Yep.
The knowledge I learnt was amazing because now even though I'm being coached, I can see where it's coming from, what it's for. Yep. But that's also another part of, if you don't understand what you're doing, and you don't have to understand everything, but if you don't understand the aspects of what you're doing, you're not going to pick it up.
Yeah.
It's sort of like learning how to ride a bike. You know it's got pedals. You know it's got wheels. You know what they do. You don't. I'm not a BMX rider. I don't know how to master physics and do backflips, but I know how to ride a bike, and that's just enough that I need to know to get me from A to B. And I think that's the thing that's the biggest part about being an athlete that tried coaching, was that I learnt as much as I could from stimulus and paperwork, and other coaches expressing how they needed certain things to happen. But then I'm not going to learn how to be a BMX rider, am I? I just know how to get from point A to point B, which is going to get me to where I need to be.
Yep.
Which is exactly what happened with powerlifting.
Yeah. And it's like another step in that journey to taking things more seriously.
That's right, because if I can't master how to rest and recover, which is a big thing you learn when you're doing your Cert 3 and 4, you learn how to manage rest and fatigue. That's a big part of performance. Like knowing how to rest and recover is going to save you in the long run. Yeah. So that's obviously going to be a big part of what you learn. Yeah. Right, yeah.
So when you went from that experimental phase and you were learning about some conjugate stuff and mixing it in with your block and linear ideas, and then experimenting with the people that you were training, and then you went to Dylan and subsequently Will, who both operate in a conjugate structure. What did you learn from those guys that you were kind of like, well, that's outside of my more understanding of what I originally thought? You know,
it's more the uses of the variations of exercise and when to pump the brakes and when to put the gas on, but also it's more or less just bringing out the mindset to why we're doing it, not the fact that what we're doing it for, it's the why we're doing it. So we've said it a few times whenever I've had a competition where I've failed a bench press, more triceps. We just say it because it's like, okay, well, obviously it's my lockout. That's triceps. That we all know where the problem comes from. We know how to fix it. It's the why, which is why does this play up? Why does that, where does it come from? And it's the technical cues that Will throws at me that made the difference. Like last weekend when I was up there with him, you know, I didn't know, and no one's probably ever picked up on it, that when I've unracked the bar from a squat, I sort of unrack it and lean backwards. That 4 inches of movement is what threw off my 400 kilo squat, because I tried to lean back with it and that weight just went over the top of me. Hence why I fell that little bit forward and you had to catch me, which probably would have scared the shit out of you.
I've caught this is the second time I've caught you with 400.
That is actually, because you did it with the multi-ply one.
Yeah, I was on the side for that. That was a bit better because it was right at the top.
That's right, it was.
Carrying as well.
But yeah, it was just that little difference of just get underneath it and wedge. Yeah. The moment he said it, I was like, how have I not seen this? Yeah. How have I not picked up on this? Because it's every other little aspect I've picked up on, but not how I got it out of the rack. And then, you know, bench, it's the word wedge gets thrown around so much with Will, and that is important, an important thing for it. But, you know, just learning those little cues, little tiny 1%ers, again, the 1%ers, that changed everything and allowed me to perform better without having to worry about rest and recovery on one specific aspect. It just changed everything. Like Will said it a few times, I've got the horsepower, we just need traction. Getting that traction is what's going to change you from 380 to 400. I can work my ass off all day. I just need to be able to get that little bit extra. And that's the biggest thing I've picked up on using that conjugate style, because I can actually use those technical cues across all of those variations. But because it's a different stimulus, I get all those angles, I get all those weights, those volumes, without having to sacrifice forgetting the cues. Because you know yourself, if you're doing a cambered bar bench, you still need the same cues. You just have to add your own stability to it, which will activate your lats for more stability. and your hand positioning, all that kind of stuff. It's the little 1% of cues that change everything.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger benefits of using variation. You don't like throw conjugate out of the discussion. Conjugate's good because it facilitates variation, but more people need to use these tools to reinforce those cues, because it's like you've got a weak upper back. I can tell you to engage your upper back, like traps to the back wall, traps to the roof if you're squatting and your chest is caving and stuff like that. Or I can tell you that and add a safety squat bar.
That's right.
And I could put chains on it too, and it's just going to punish you if you get out of position.
That's right. And you'll know the hard way.
Yeah, and then you'll know what that cue means.
That's right, because then you'll know this is how it's going to feel in the worst possible position.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want that. So then you end up learning how to put yourself in a better position. Maybe you throw a straight bar on, you're going to feel like you're going to fall backwards with it, because it's now in your head. You've positioned yourself in a better position just to perform out 1% better. And you don't think about it, but that's just how it is. Yeah. It's like running on sand to get better at sprinting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think about it. You know it's a different stimulus, but because your calves, your toes, everything from the floor all the way up, even your lungs, all of that transfers over. Maybe you hit that hard rubber, you got more traction. Yeah. You're going to take off.
Yeah. Well, even the same thing. To the point of just not even take the stability out of that sand running, to double down on that metaphor, is the activation, like you just said, from toe to knee, in terms of what every muscle in your foot has to work when you're in sand. You put that onto a hard surface, and you've just gone, holy shit, I've got access to all these other muscles.
Got access to all of this ability now. Oh man, this makes things so much easier.
Yeah.
Well, now that heavier weight that you've been mentally struggling with, it's not heavy anymore, because you're like, I'm so much better now, I can do that. It's not just a case of just getting stronger for the sake of stronger. I'm now technically better with the same strength, but I can push further. Yeah. Because I don't have to worry about all this little stuff on the side that I would have had to have thought about. Like where your toe, how much you're pushing through the floor with your toes as much as your heel, even though you should be pushing through your whole foot. You don't think about that because you're so focused on what feels right, not what feels good.
Yeah. Right. Well, and it's like the difference in where your foot pressure sits, depending on what bar's on your back too.
That's right.
Or what variation of a straight bar you're holding, like if you're front squatting with it, or high bar and low bar, that's great to add those in. But you chuck a SSB front squat in where you're getting choked out by the pad. Yep. And the weight is now not as anteriorly loaded as the SSB is. Normally it's kind of more behind you, but the bar's in front of you. So now you're like, oh, what the hell do I do to like wedge into this again? Where's my foot pressure?
That's right.
So then you transfer, you get back on a straight bar, you're like, oh, straight bars are easy.
Oh, this is butter. Like, this is cream. Yeah. This just makes things a lot simpler, just taking those little cues. And as you said, take conjugate out of it. Yeah. Those little training systems, it's not about the volume and the weights. That comes later. It's the little cues, relearning a skill that even though you thought you knew how to do it, was it like McGill with Brian Carroll, world record squat holder, had to learn how to get off a toilet. Yeah, it's those little 1%ers. If you catch them too late, you end up like that. Like it's those little 1%ers you have to learn in the technical cues realm, not just lifestyle 1%ers. Yeah, those 1%ers, they kick off harder because you've just now learned how to redo the right thing, even though you're moving right. You need to learn those little details to the same movement, and you're not going to see it as an outside perspective. You're not going to tell the difference. You might tell, his back's a bit more arched than normal, or his triceps are a bit more shaky than normal. Well, what's changed? It's 1%. Yeah, like that's the difference between what I learned with Dill and Will with the whole conjugate method sort of style.
Yeah. I think it's a great tool to facilitate that, because it puts you out of, because you're doing so much variation, you've got to apply the broader skill of squatting, just to take squatting or benching, whatever, these simple movements, and you take it across a broad scale of variation. You've got to then adapt to each one of those things to get better at the one thing at the top, which is your competition squat.
That's right.
And it should make that easier.
Yeah, it should. It should.
Yeah. But it will if you pay attention to those things.
That's right. So if you're aware, and again, if you're aware of what you're doing, know the what, the where, the why.
Yeah.
You know how it's going to work, and that's a big part of it. Is again, it comes down to learning and getting serious and knowing what means serious to you. So you learn those little details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apart from the ACL and the reconstruction there, what other injuries have you sustained just in powerlifting?
Just in powerlifting. Leroy can attest to that. I did half deglove my fingers after squatting after night shift.
Right. Bailing it in the straps?
Yep.
Yes, I've heard that story.
Yes. So those slings, I think it was Leroy, I think it was 235 or something. I was doing it for sets of 5. It was the last set, and I've just come up and half fell asleep.
Yeah.
Just pushed it on a night shift, come in, because I only worked at the Steggles just around the corner.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I would finish work at 7, come in, he'd be there at 9, so I'd have like an hour and a half to sort of rest and have a sleep. Then I'd start training with him at 9. And then, that set just fell asleep. and you know how you know those little details where you have your hands outside the straps? Yes. I was still squatting my hands narrow at that point because my shoulders and triceps weren't as tight. And I had my fingers in line physically with the straps, and obviously fall forward, fingers stuck underneath that real heavy knurled bar.
Yep.
It's hit the slings, and I've just ripped my fingers out from underneath it. Lost the fingerprints on the inside of these 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And that was the ugliest thing that's the ugliest injury I've had. But that's pretty much the only real powerlifting injury that I had. I did have like a refractured in my ankle. I was in the lounge room with Taylor. We weren't doing anything. It was just I was getting off the floor, and an old fracture just sort of went pop. Yeah. Or calcified. So that was a bit tender for a bit. A couple of little minor scares, a couple of little tears that I thought I had. They weren't major, but it was like enough to just more a strain than a tear. Yeah. Never had any real powerlifting based injuries. All of the injuries I had, or either apart from the fingers, was more or less just they were niggles from external factors. They correlated over. I knew they existed. More or less just mitigated any issues I had with them. Yeah.
So, that's a very good example of why if you walk out on a platform at a comp and the back spotter readjusts the straps and you get annoyed because you want to have your hands inside them, that's why they're doing it.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
You will lose a finger.
Yep. And, since then, every time I've seen a monolith rack, I watch wherever someone's hands are. I don't know if it's just me trying to look out for somebody else to not have it happen to them or have someone's arm pinned under a squat bar, because I have seen that. There was one video where someone's arm got pinned between the bar and the sling. Yeah. And, of course, it was just after I did my fingers. Yeah. But, it's more – and you see those slings, the little ropes that are on all the monos. It's like that rope's not going to do nothing. If that falls where I know it's going to fall, those little tiny ropes – that's just there to prevent viewing, I think.
I had a client actually dumped 145, I think, over her head. Yep. And just panicked and went straight over her head, and I just couldn't save her. So I pulled her out, and she had her hands inside the straps, which I didn't realise when she was setting up because I was looking at something else. Yep. And she broke her thumb in that process. Yep. And that is, 145 kilos on a steel bar trapped.
With momentum.
Yeah, but she did similarly to what you would have done, oh shit, and pulled your thumb out or your hand out. Yep. So she's lucky she didn't deglove her thumb in the process, but she only broke it, which was good. But she walked out of there with a good chunk of hair missing and a big scrape up the back of her neck.
And those things, it doesn't matter how prepared you're going to be. It does happen. Oh, yeah. And I was at do you remember that video of me squatting 355 barefoot in the grass, and it somehow went viral for a little bit?
Oh, no, I would have seen the video, but I don't know.
No, there was like 3,500 likes to it in less than 24 hours. I was like, what the I was just squatting in the backyard. What is this? Yeah. And everyone was saying, where's his safeties? Where's his spotters? And I was like, no, I know how to – I've failed enough squats to know how to bail. Yeah. If you fail, bar goes backwards. That's if you fail. Mm-hmm. If you have spotters and slings – you control the failure. Yeah. We all know that. We've all tried to do that. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but you got to learn how to fuck up before you learn how to succeed. Yeah. And there's that many failures that you can count on whatever little meter you can count on. That's what feeds your successes. Mm-hmm. The more you fail, the better you get.
Yeah.
And that's where I laugh at them now. The amount of times I've laughed about these 2 fingers being degloved, just because it's like, you idiot. What made you think going to work after a 12-hour night shift was a great idea to squat that much weight? Even though I was still green, it was heavy for me at that time. Like that was just ludicrous, the idea of me doing that.
Yeah.
Like that was, it is what it is.
Well, again, comes back to that idea of how serious you think you're taking it.
That's right.
That's probably what you thought was the way to take things seriously, is do it no matter what.
That's right. And then having to go back to work that night thinking, oh, man, this is going to hurt. Everything I grab, because obviously you do an injury like that, it's not, I wouldn't really call it degloving. It was just the fingerprint pad was removed on both fingers.
Yeah.
So it's just easy to say it was degloved, which it looked like it was. Mm-hmm. But I had to go to work and I was working in a freezing cold temperature. I was like, oh, man, this is not going to work. This is not going to help.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like you have to learn those little things. And it's like, yeah, we learn the hard way.
We do.
We do.
But a lot of people don't. And I think the trick is to not let it be a catastrophic event that
that's right
makes you learn.
That's right.
It's learn from these little things.
Yep. And like all your little failures that you have to learn along the way. Like how many times have you been pinned underneath the bench press? Mm-hmm. You have to learn how to do it. And especially when you throw a shirt on, you've got to learn how to fail with that on.
Yeah.
Even though you can't control it in a competition setting when you're exerting maximum effort, you've got to know how to prevent the worst possible outcome. I think that's where assessing when you're fatigued, when you're tired, when you're gassed and when you've had enough, pull up before something dangerous happens.
Yeah.
Like stop while you're ahead.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
One thing that a lot of young competitors and just competitors across the board, having been someone that's spotted a lot of competitions now and a lot of lifts, having done 2 nationals in a row.
Which can I say, that is a monumental effort. Like I watched you on at nationals, and I'm like, man, I've never seen that much sweat pour out of him. But I know he's working his ass off. Like everyone thinks back spotting's easy. It's like I've done one comp where I back spotted. Man, how sore were your hips afterwards?
Oh, pretty sore. My hamstrings were real jacked up.
Because you end up squatting further out wide than you normally would, or narrower because somebody else is now wider than you are, being however tall they are.
Pretty much my form and my technique for back spotting is like wide as I stand multi-ply.
Yep.
If not a little bit wider, and I'm just good morning behind doing a good morning behind them. So my hamstrings and glutes were just fried, which because I can thank Tim and the guys from Hunter Performance Physio for sorting me out on day 2.
Yep.
When they were real sore.
Oh yeah.
So
because I'll attest that was monumental seeing you do that. Like I knew you did it the first year, then you did it again this year, and I'm thinking, mate, that is a huge effort. Yeah, that looked like a huge effort.
Well, we had a good crew. We were just like we had enough people to get the job done, but we all had to work hard to get it done.
Yeah, and that was probably out of all the nationals that I've ever seen being critiqued, that was probably the most functional and cleanest run. There was that bench press hiccup. Mm-hmm. Industrial hiccups happen. Yeah. That you can't prevent. You can't really plan for a mechanical breakdown, even though you probably could, but a mechanical breakdown, it's going to happen. How many people are bashing a bench press all day?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. So you can't.
Especially that day, it was like,
there was a lot of benching.
Not a bench under 150 in that whole flight.
Yeah, and you throw physics in there. That's a lot of weight getting thrown around.
Yeah.
So the whole Nationals was an amazing event. And I mean, in hindsight, I'm glad Taylor told me not to do the first Nationals because I was nowhere near ready. I would have disappointed myself and broke my own heart if I did it. Yeah. Because I was nowhere near ready to do anything fun or anything worth my time wasting somebody else's time to be there. Yeah. But I'm glad I did the second one to experience how good that Nationals ran. Based on everything else, like we've all seen meets get bagged out, everything else. I haven't seen that Nationals bagged out at all. And that was probably the cleanest run Nationals that I've ever witnessed from either external or internal experience, which was, and it comes down to how you guys ran the show as well, which was awesome to see.
Well, thank you very much.
Plus, being caught twice under a 400 kilo squat by you is probably a good thing to say now. It's like, well, you've caught me twice.
Third time's a charm.
That's
Next
right.
time you do it, I should be there so you can actually get it.
Exactly. That's right.
I look forward to the day you get that one because you've got it. It's there.
It's there. It'll be there eventually. It's just all my ducks have got to line up.
Yeah.
All the stars have got to line, and everything else has got to work in. But we'll get there eventually.
But I think you see with a lot of like competitors now, and particularly the kind of the bigger people who handle the bigger numbers, they know when to say no on a lift.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean mid lift. If you're spotting it, they'll go, nah, take it. Like, that is a skill to learn that I can encourage every powerlifter to learn is know when to give up sometimes.
Yeah, wear that failure. There might be a couple hundred people staring at you. You do that, doesn't matter. It does not. It's not going to break your pride. It's not going to hurt your ego. I've done it twice.
Yeah.
Well, I've done it multiple times, really, if you count the lower level comps that I did. You have to learn how to do it because the idea of a spotter, that's their job, is to prevent you from hurting yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the mono's there to save you from catastrophic.
Yeah.
Spotter takes that down from a catastrophic to an advanced failure. Sort of like taking those JSAs and like safety analysis. You go from the worst possible outcome all the way down. Your side spotters, that's your white level. You're the green level. Everything else after that is orange and red.
Yeah.
You know, so it's more or less you have to learn when to go, no, don't do a woo up.
Yeah.
Take this off me quick. This is going to go bad.
Yeah.
You can't prevent if something just blows out on you.
Oh, yeah, stuff happens.
Then you've got everything else in place, don't you?
Yeah.
But you have to learn when to say, no, I can't do this. I physically can't do this. Like, you have to learn that. Otherwise, you're either going to hurt yourself and put yourself in the worst possible position for a recovery, or someone else is going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So you're preventing somebody else's like pain and suffering just from simply going, no, you don't have to make a noise. You've heard me. You've seen it. I couldn't make a noise.
No, you shake your head.
No.
Well, then it becomes a chain of discussion then because you shake your head. I might not see that because I'm watching your back, but I'll hear the head ref go, take it, and then when it's on,
That's
we'll
right.
take it. But as like I pride myself on running a good platform when I run it, and I am serious about spotting, and I'm like, I know there's a few people around the country. We actually have a group chat of spotters
And
group
there's
chat.
nothing wrong with that. I'm all for it. Like,
But there's a lot of people that don't. They just get called up.
to just spot on the side. Yeah.
So if you want to like be safe as a lifter, understanding that you might not have the most experienced spotting crew, so the more notice you can give them that you're not going to get this lift,
100%. Like there was, like we've all seen those real bad, like those comps that had like really bad spotters, like this overhand spotting stuff. Like, what's his hand? You're not a fucking franner. Like, what are you doing?
The puppet master.
Yeah, the puppet master. You're not a 60-ton franner being able to catch that. Like, but yeah, like having the right people beside you to, and even knowing that you've got spotters takes away so much stress.
Oh yeah.
Like there's those sessions that I did at Hunter Strength when obviously people are busy. I had just Kevin, that one session I squatted 360 where I had that massive wobble.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy I didn't fuck that up.
Just gave him a heart attack.
Oh, that poor bloke. But when I did that, I just had Kevin. The second time I had Kevin, I had Kevin, Tim, and I had Brad on the gate.
Yep.
That was when I squatted that 380. Just the difference of having just one person at each side, not a back spotter, makes a huge difference into the ability that you can put in the bar because that's less stress you have to think about. But then when I got the comp day, I knew I had you. I can't remember who the two spotters were because we all know I was laser focused on that.
Yeah. Oh, we would have had 5 for that one.
Yeah, that's right. You would have had 5. But I didn't pay attention as to who it was. But I knew there was enough spotters there that if I said no, there was going to be enough people to catch it.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. Even when I said no, I shook my head. I knew that I wasn't going to get pinned underneath it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I've stopped. I knew where I was when I said no. I knew how far I was going to drop before someone catches me in my head. But, that little safety, little aspect is a huge point in powerlifting that everyone seems to ignore. Like spotters and loaders, everyone congratulate you at the end of a meet. That's not to me. That's not enough. Like that, there should be more in place. That it should be, it's a volunteer based thing, but it's like you got to treat this seriously. As you said, you got a group chat for it. There's not much more serious you get further than that. If you've got a group of blokes that are going to be spotters, like you remember Spiros spotting at Pro Raw.
Yep.
Now, there's going to be a couple hundred people that are going to admit there is no safer person. You're probably the only other person I could say that's probably the equal amount of safety. But even then, I've only had Spiros once before he stepped down. When Spiros was the guy that spotted you, you knew anything that went south was never going to be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Because for some reason he had the crew behind him, even though they were young blokes, had all these crews behind him, and he spoke to you in your ear. And I know you did. I don't remember what you said, but you said something. You whispered in my ear.
Oh, I don't even remember.
It's whispered sweet nothings.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know
many sweet nothings whispered that week.
Look, I don't remember what you said, but you said something, and this little air of relax was enough to get me confident under the bar. Even when I failed that 400, that little bit of that's a separate skill entirely in the same sport. That's an amazing thing to learn. And having you there as a spotter there, that's twice now you've done that. I reckon if it was to come back to Newcastle again and you were there again, I reckon I'll nail more.
You'll get it this time.
Oh, I'll get it this time.
Yeah. It's been so close both times.
Oh, yeah. She'll get there.
Did you have a crack at it at Dubbo too?
No.
No, you just did 380.
Because I knew that I was like, oh, I'm a bit heavy going with the ribs. I was I was pushing it, but I went 340, 60, then 80. I was like, 20 kilo jump should be enough. When I squatted the 380 and it moved pretty comfortably and there was no pain because of, I don't know how, but maybe adrenaline. But Will said, did you want to go at fourth? Didn't think anything of it. I was like, no, 3 will do. Just survive. Just survive.
Yeah.
Didn't want to bomb because at that time I didn't have any bombs under my name.
Yeah.
I was like, no, don't want to bomb. Just leave it at that. Come back next time. Well, obviously we come back next time and just equaled it. But we'll be chasing that one down and hopefully Pro Raw. Yeah. I'll pop its cherry.
Yeah. You have to chip the 380 at least.
I do. I have to chip above 380, but I'd like to be able to say, look, I've finally done it. Yeah. If Pro Raw is the place I do it, Pro Raw is the place I do it. But I would like to squat 400 next year at any time. Yeah. Well, any time.
I will take this opportunity to say that Spiros has left a great legacy for spotting at PTC because Jake Hawker and that crew at PTC.
They are good.
Top tier. And as someone who's been spotted by a 3-man crew with 335 I squatted at PTC with those guys, I was like, I walked out and I'm like, well, I don't have any qualms about this being only 3 people for a 300 plus squat. Because Jake Hawker is there and he is the phenomenally large human with very long arms. So he will make you feel very safe.
Well, there you go. There you go. So we're on then.
Yeah, so Jake is he's part of that spotting group chat because it's led by a few, I won't name who's in it, but it's
big names.
People who take it seriously and want to see it get better across federations. It's not just one federation. It's every federation in the country. And we all talk about how we can improve spotting and loading, but particularly spotting and making it safer. And it really comes down to squats. Yeah,
everything else is pretty consistent. Deadlifting, just catch them if they fall backwards. Yeah, it's not that hard. But then benching, it's like, okay, obviously there's a lot of apparatus in the way to prevent how many people you can get on there. Having someone emergency off the platform, that's the big one. Yeah. Then obviously one each side of the plates. Like that's... Well, one on both angles of the plates. Yeah. Like that's pretty consistent. Everyone knows how to catch a barbell at waist height. Yeah. It's pretty easy. But then one thing I actually think needs to be addressed with powerlifting is the pin arms. You ever notice how many people actually use the pin arms?
For setting up a bench?
Yeah.
People just leave it blank.
I'll be bad. I've done it. Yeah. I've done it a few times. I've now make a thing of it that I'll put it down. Yeah. Because those things, that's the first port of call of safety. You should actually set yourself up in a bench to think, okay, what happens if I fail? Put the bar down where you're going to fail. Because we've seen how many people get hit in the neck. Yeah. It's so simple. It's 2 6mm plates of steel that'll catch a bar, and no one's putting. There's no multiples of Jimmy Kolb out there. It's not going to break it. Just set it up.
Yeah, it's the last line of defence, that one.
That's right.
If bench goes quick too, so people a lot of in terms of failure, if people bail a bench, it's going to hit you in the face real quick.
Oh yeah. Put the pins up.
Yeah.
Put them in. Like, I've been bad for it, I'll admit.
Yeah.
But once you know that when you fuck up, it's going to go south real quick, especially if you're wearing equipped.
Yeah.
You'll put the pins in.
Yeah. Yeah, I have never not put pin heights in for face savers.
Yep.
Like even raw comps, but equipped always.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if it goes, it's going quick.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've had it happen and I had 5 spotters.
Yeah, exactly. So have you have 5 spotters, it still can go wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one thing I know because I don't know why I picked up on it. Don't know how I picked up on it. Don't know why. But it's like, hey, no one's using the safety, the face savers here.
Yeah.
Like, no one's using them.
Yeah.
Like, well, shit, I've been one that does that. Maybe I probably should.
Yeah, well, funnily you mentioned deadlift because you catch them when they fall over backwards. So the thing I find spotting deadlift is that chances are, like, backwards is fine. If they go backwards,
It's forwards.
it's forwards that you're going to miss.
Yeah.
So if you're not really close to them and they go forward, you got no chance of catching them.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you can't, even if you grabbed them by the belt at arm's length, you're not going to stop them.
That's because, they're falling forward.
Yeah.
It just happens.
And that's when they're going to hurt themselves because
right.
they trip over the bar, they want to hit the edge of the platform or whatever. So that's, if you've ever seen me back spot a deadlift and you're like, why the hell is he so close?
Yeah.
That's why.
That's why. Because if you do have to catch it, you want the least amount of movement possible.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I want to be really close, and it's like, I'm sorry that I ruined everybody's nationals photos with my big head in it, but
Don't worry about it. I'm getting them framed.
I like this year because we have black t-shirts. I look much better in black than whatever the colour was last year. It was like grey or something, but you could just see how sweaty I was.
It is what it is. It was a very, very fast meet.
Oh, yeah.
So sweat was going to be inevitable.
Well, I had, because everyone gets a t-shirt for the platform, I had 3.
Yeah.
And Leroy gave me 3. He's like, you got 1 each for each day. And I said, no, I'm going to use 3 a day.
Yeah, 3 a day.
So I brought, every day I had 4 towels and 4 t-shirts.
Yeah.
And I went through all of it.
As you do. As you do.
I'm sweaty at the best times, let alone when I'm going like cut snake.
Oh, yeah.
So next on the chopping block for you is Pro Raw.
Yep.
So you just about to start prep, you were telling me?
Yeah, we've got a few weeks left before we actually start the prep. Everything's still the prep, but capitals, the prep.
Yeah.
Starts in a few weeks. Whenever Will tells me that's when we put the hammer down, we start that.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's conditioning, it's getting the body positioning wise, all those little details that we spoke about.
Yeah.
Getting all that lined up and squared away, leave it so that's just now second nature.
Yeah.
And obviously get the conditioning into the squat, into the bench and dead, just so we have a buffer of conditioning, like GPP, as we all know about.
Yeah.
That general preparedness to go into that prep because it's going to get heavy real quick, because if we're going to be looking at big numbers, it's going to get heavy real quick.
Yep.
So, and that's, again, the 1%ers, throw them on there, get everything else right, and then hopefully Pro Raw, I put on a good enough performance to have, an under 10 on the platform. Podium would be an amazing position.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm at that point just yet. But if we look for, if I want to hit that 950 total that I wanted to hit at Nationals, well, then we might be pushing an under 10s performance. So that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when is Pro Raw?
March.
Yeah.
I believe. Again, I just get told.
Just point me in the direction and give me a shove.
Yeah, I just point me where I'm going, tell me what I'm doing. I know it's March. I think it's right before my son's birthday, so there may be a couple of conversations had leading into that. But I'm hoping that it's right, that it's before it, not after it.
Yeah.
If it ends up crossing over into April, because his birthday is 1st April,
Right.
there might be a few conversations had leading into that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I always think Pro Raw is in March, and then everyone's talking about Pro Raw prep, and I'm like, has it changed dates? What is going on? Because everyone's talking about it now, and it's October.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like the 3rd or 4th week of March.
Yeah.
It's either one of those weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, once it's nailed down, planes will be sorted. Planes and hotels will be sorted, and I'm going. Because I used to do this whole thing where it's like, I'll book it eventually. No, if I don't book it early, I'm not going.
Yeah.
So that'll be me.
Are you looking at who you're competing against?
No, I've never done it.
Yeah.
Never looked at who I'm competing against, because obviously I'm not wrestling them.
Yeah.
their performance doesn't dictate my performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, the events of the day I may get intimidated, I might get scared of what's going on, but their performance can't affect mine, my performance. Again, it's just like with footy. Their performance affected the team. Well, the only person's performance that matters is mine.
Yeah.
So that's what I fixate on. Even though I've gone up against Ryan Williams, I knew I'd never beat him, but I wasn't there to muck around. I'm having my best performance I can possibly give. So that's all I can give.
Yeah.
Regardless of who I'm up against, it's going to be a big day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. To me, where I place doesn't matter. It's as much as how much of a performance I can put on. If that allows me on a platform, it allows me on a platform. But it's pro raw we're talking.
Yeah.
Like just to be there it's not enough, but it's enough.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the caliber of performance, right? So you won nationals with a 905 total this year, and you're hoping to total 950 to get top 10.
Yeah.
So that's the caliber of pro raw.
That's right. Like it's like, so Bathurst is on this weekend. How many drivers are there that are hoping they're going to win? Yeah. Like you got that many drivers. Even the guy that's at the bottom, he's still just as good as a driver as everybody else. Yeah. He just hasn't had those wins to lead him into the winning podium, right? Or he hasn't got to that position to win at Bathurst by the time this comes out. Yeah. But that's how I treat myself. As like, I'm there to give everyone a good nudge, but my performance is my performance. My performance doesn't dictate how you perform. So that's how I take it. Regardless of what they're doing, I'm putting my best foot forward. I'm doing what I can. All I've got to do is know when I need to put the hammer down for whatever I'm doing, where I am in the flight. Yeah. That's really the only thing I worry about is where I am in the flight, so I can time how long I need to rest. Yep. And but Will's going to treat me like a trained dog at that point. He'll be like, sit down.
He will. He's been at most of my comps. Yeah. But like we went to Canberra and did a comp, and that was the first time he'd like wrapped my knees and told me what to do. Yep. And I was like, I'm not used to this, because normally he's like either running the meet or he was competing at one, or I've had other people looking after me. And this one, he was in charge, and I'm like, this is a bit weird. Like, I wasn't ready for it.
I was just in my zone. I was like, right, tell what to do. He's not here to screw me. Obviously, he's not here to screw me.
Oh no, not at all.
But it's just like, no, I'll do as I'm told, and I will happily do as I'm told. I am not thinking. My brain does not exist. I am just muscle today. That's all I need to be. Yeah. And I enjoy that. Yeah. Like that, again, being a good athlete, I just do as I'm told, I'll do it. Like, just happy to do it.
Yeah. Well, and then there you go back to the differences in people, because he did that with me, and I was like, I didn't particularly enjoy that. Yep. And I said to him, I'm like, I want to set my own shirt, and I want you to wrap my knees and call my depth, and the rest of it I'll handle. He's like, okay. Yeah. He did exactly what I needed when I told him what I needed. Yep. And like, it's just, that's a difference in personality. Yeah. So I don't respond well to that kind of.
Yeah, no, that kind of.
I don't want to be that serious.
Yeah. Like, I was rapping. Leroy taught me how to wrap my knees, and I could wrap my knees consistently all the time. But how Leroy wraps my knees suited me when I was squatting 360. Yeah. But obviously, when I was training with that equipped stuff, the 380s and all that kind of stuff, the couple of 400s I did in the training or in my shed, I squatted with wraps exactly the same, just maybe a little bit tighter up the top. When Will wrapped me, and Dill, he goes, they go, how do you want to wrap? And I was like, I don't care as long as it's tight and I'm confident with it. And they've both looked at me with the same look, going, you sure? And I'm like, yeah, just go for it. They both wrapped me exactly the same as Andrei Milanichev. I'm like, oh, that's tight. Like, okay, I'm here for it. I'm here. The only thing I probably don't like is because you get so used to going, if I see my knee through the wrap, it's not positioned right. That's out the window now. I know it's tight.
Yeah, I think the tightest wraps I've had, you could still see my knee through the wrap. And it's like, I could barely feel my feet.
That's right. Like, was it the whole prep, even the 380 in the gym, I wrapped the 3 up, cross it, and then the 2 at the top and tie it off. That's what I did the entire prep. When I watched how Will did it, and then the old pliers pull it through and all that kind of stuff. With how Andrei Milanichev got wrapped, I I was like, well, if he's squatting what he squatted with that rap, I should be able to do this. And I just did it.
Yeah.
I was like, I told someone at work, it was like the Make Me Like Mike. Remember that movie? Mm-hmm. When they put the special shoes on, they could dunk.
Oh,
the little tiny white boy could dunk. And I'm like, well, same aspect. If that's how he got wrapped, and I'm getting wrapped like that, well, that should be pretty easy for me to do then.
Yeah.
Well, it was until we didn't get it.
I think the first meet that Will wrapped my knees, it was the qualifier for Capo Nationals.
Yeah.
And I moved into 3 metre wraps because I can use 3 metres in multi-ply in Capo. And he said, how do you want them wrapped? I'm like, just like up as high as you can go, and then whatever's left, go back down. Oh. And that's because I like them up high for equipped, because I like more on the quad for the stability of the knee joint there. And I want it tighter at the quad. So he went, he's like, how tight do you want it? I said, maybe like a medium, like 70% of what you would do for a raw guy.
Yeah.
And he did it, and I was just like, holy shit, I think you got 10 or 11 revs on it.
On a 3 metre wrap.
Yeah, and I was just like, holy shit. Oh. And we wrapped early because he said, when do you want to wrap? And I said, the lifter before me.
Yeah, so 2 lifters out.
When they get the squat call, start wrapping my knees. And he's like, I wrap really fast. I'm like, yeah.
No, you're not joking, he wraps fast.
He wrapped my knees, and I was standing there for like a whole lift. And he's like, we wrapped too early. He's like, do you want me to pick the time next time? I'm like, yep.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and it's efficient. It's quick and it's efficient. It's like, holy. But look, again, it comes back to being just a good athlete.
Yeah.
When it gets to pro raw, I'll just sit and do as I'm told. Mm-hmm. Just dog on good recall. That's what I'll be.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Leading to that.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing what you put up, and hopefully you can get that 950, if not a bit more.
Yeah. Well, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Especially if, doing what I do for work, or just manage fatigue and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
So I guess my last question to wrap up would be, where does the obsession with Star Wars come from?
I won't throw my dad under the bus for this one, but I think it was a easy way to babysit while Dad maybe wanted to have a sleep when he was working. When he was working at Kmart on nights. Yeah, like he's still there now. Like he's been there for 28 years, which is a massive stint. Mm-hmm. But it's more or less like it was not need to have a sleep through the day. But when I was a little fella, it would have been an easy way to keep me entertained, because bright lights, flashing laser sticks, you can get pretty excited about that as a little kid.
Oh yeah.
It was just more or less the more I could, I fell in love with the villain. Mm-hmm. I fell in love with Vader and all the bad guys, the stormtroopers. They all look cool and shit. Then as I got older, the more resemblance I could see through different personalities in the movies. Mm-hmm. It was more like, because I wasn't exactly the most sociable of kids. I had friends, but I wasn't exactly the most sociable. Yeah. But Star Wars was the universal thing that was always the same. Mm-hmm. So I got attached to Anakin Skywalker, his whole personality traits, even though we all whinge about Hayden Christensen's bad acting, episode like 1, 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. But the idea of he did the bad things, may have been for the right or wrong reason. Yeah. But his justification for it was a big thing that I attached myself to. Mm-hmm. It was just a snowball effect of cool visuals and fun games and everything else after that. Yeah. But then, there was a couple of jokes. Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader is raw to equipped. That was a joke I played for a while, and it just stuck. Yeah.
Well, it's called the dark side for a reason.
Well, and that's where the joke come from, why I started that T-shirt gig that I did for a bit. Yeah, that's where dark siders come from, because it was a bit of a joke that it's the dark side of powerlifting, because it's different. It's the same thing but different. So that's where that little joke come from. But Star Wars has always been a little creature comfort for me that I always enjoyed. Yeah, but that's nothing too crazy there.
Well, thanks for coming on.
No, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Been awesome to chat and catch up and sit down and have a chat. It's probably the longest chat we've had.
Yeah, longest chat consecutively. We've had a couple of small mini ones, but this is the longest one we've had. Yeah,
it's one thing I enjoy about doing the podcast is that I get to chat to lots of people and spread my tendrils out and meet more people in this area, given that I'm still relatively new. Yeah. But I also have had the opportunity, like yourself, to invite people that I know and consider friends. Yeah. to sit down and actually have a really good chat.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, and I thank you for coming on. And I look forward to seeing what you do at Pro Raw. Can't wait to see how the prep goes. If people want to follow you, where do they find you?
On Instagram, it's just Dark Side of Strength. It'll pop up. It's just a little black and red logo. It is faded on this too, but it's just a little Darth Vader holding a barbell above his head.
Yep.
Facebook, it's the same, just Twomey.
Yep.
But yeah, you'll catch me easy on Instagram. Facebook, I don't use that often. It's more for marketplace.
Yeah. I think that's what we all use it for now.
Yeah.
Marketplace and Aussie Equip Lifters buy, trade and sell. That's pretty much what I use it for.
100%.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
Thanks for watching or listening. And if you have stayed this long, make sure you check out our sponsors and check out the link in bio, all that information, stuff in the comments. Like, subscribe, leave a comment if you like the conversation. It all really helps get this out in front of more people, and that's what I want to do, because I want to show off these guests to other people to show how awesome they are. So the more you can share it around on your social media and do all that stuff, the better it helps. So thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.